Good evening. Welcome to the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Commissioners held for the purpose of transacting the general business of the Township. Today's date is May 9, 2018. The meeting is being held in the Springfield Township building. Please stand and join the Board of Commissioners in a moment of silent reflection, honoring the servicemen and women who placed themselves in harm's way in order to help preserve our safety. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this point, I would entertain a motion dispensing with the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting as written and recorded in the official minute book of the Township.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. We are at full complement on the board here. Our solicitor is out of town, and he is being replaced by Scott Denlinger, also of the Whistler-Pearlstein Law Offices. The Board of Commissioners conducted an executive session meeting on May 7th, following the regularly scheduled workshop meeting on that date to discuss a matter of litigation with the Township solicitor. Later in tonight's meeting, the Board of Commissioners will be conducting two public hearings to receive public comment on two proposed ordinances. The first public hearing is related to an ordinance amending the sign ordinance to clarify the number of faces and display of sign faces for all off-premises signs. The second public hearing is related to an ordinance amending the subdivision of land ordinance by rewriting the requirements for a traffic management study. The Board of Commissioners may consider enacting both ordinances as part of the public meeting. Any questions or comments related to those ordinances should be held until the public hearings. At this point, we get to our special presentation. Neil Fletcher of Pen Oak Road, Flowertown. I'd like to ask him to come to the front of the room. And while he's coming, I will explain that he took ill on March 21st, 2018, while shoveling heavy snow at his residence. And I would, at this point, invite the following: Sergeant Bruce Nesbitt, Corporal Christian Wilbur, Officer William Seiler Jr., Flowertown Fire Chief George Wilmot III, Flowertown Firefighter Lexi Wilmot, Resident Elizabeth Hetrick, Springfield Ambulance members Steve Yanis and Andrew Schwartz, and David Brown, the Deputy Director of the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety, to the front of the room. I note that Corporal Wilbur and Ms. Hetrick have other obligations and were not expected to attend tonight, but we wanted to remember them. At this point, I have a resolution that I'm going to read, and then that will give us some of the details. Hold on. I need to grab the resolution. I would read this from down there, but once I read it, we actually have to adopt it to make it official, so I have to stay up here for that. Whereas on March 21st, 2018, a nor'easter pummeled Springfield Township and the surrounding region with 12 inches of snow, sleet, rain, and damaging winds. And whereas, as a responsible resident, Neil Fletcher, 303 Pen Oak Road, Flowertown, addressed the removal of the ice and snow from the sidewalks at his residence so as to provide a clear, safe passage for his neighbors. And whereas the extraordinary, difficult task of removing the heavy, wet snow and ice from the sidewalk caused Mr. Fletcher to suffer a cardiac arrest. And whereas a 911 call was made for a medical emergency at 4:41 p.m., and Officer William Seiler Jr. arrived at 4:43 p.m. Whereas Officer Seiler Jr. quickly assessed the condition of the patient to be dire and began CPR heart compressions as Elizabeth Hetrick, a registered nurse and neighbor, administered life-saving breaths in coordination with each other. And whereas Flourtown Fire Chief George Wilmot III and firefighter Lexi Wilmot heard the emergency call on the radio for medical assistance and without hesitation departed their residence to assist. And whereas Sergeant Bruce Nisbet and Corporal Christian Wilbur arrived to assist with an automatic external defibrillator, all the time Officer Seiler Jr. and Mrs. Hetrick administered CPR. And whereas Sergeant Nisbet, Corporal Wilbur, Chief Wilmot, and firefighter Wilmot prepared the automatic external defibrillator and Mr. Fletcher for use of the device. Whereas the analysis of the AED device called for 2 applications of an electric shock to restore a normal heart rhythm, in between which Officer Seiler Jr. and Mrs. Hetrick continued CPR. And whereas upon arrival of Springfield ambulance personnel, Stephen Yanis and Andrew Swartz, the entire team assisted Mr. Fletcher into the ambulance, and Chief Wilmot drove the ambulance to the hospital in order that Mr. Yanis and Mr. Swartz could advance medical attention to Mr. Fletcher. And whereas Mr. Fletcher is home recovering from his unfortunate circumstance and is planning many more years to enjoy the company of friends and family. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Springfield Township does hereby recognize, commend, and wholeheartedly thank Mrs. Hetrick, Officer Seiler Jr., Corporal Wilbur, Sergeant Nisbet, Fire Chief Wilmot, firefighter Wilmot, Mr. Yanis, and Mr. Swartz for their gallant, swift, heroic, life-saving actions, unanimously adopted this 9th day of May, 2018. Well, hopefully that will be unanimously adopted. That's what it says. So that is my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Well, opposed, say nay. There we go. It's official.
There you go.
And Dave, I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you. And again, on behalf of Montgomery County Department of Public Safety, we just want to commend these rescuers. It's really important that we have a team effort. The idea of the more quickly we can get people responding to someone in sudden cardiac arrest, the better chance they have of survival. We are thrilled that we have a success, and we want to celebrate that and celebrate your life, sir. And we want to thank the rescuers for their team effort, including the first responder, Mrs. Hetrick, the neighbor, calling 911 quickly, the firefighters and police arriving, performing CPR and automatic external defibrillation, and then rapid and successful care to the hospital that ensured the success and survival of our residents. So thank you again, and each member of the rescue team will receive a commendation from the county, as well as a county pin in honor of your successful rescue efforts. Thank you again.
He's a survivor.
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if we just got a group picture?
I was going to say, why don't you squeeze together down towards Steve, underneath your names there.
Good job, Lex. Sure, hold them out, George. Good door, George. Come on.
First, put your thing.
Okay, one last round of applause.
All right.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
I will not pontificate because I think their actions speak louder than any words. It's great. We live in a great community. And while we're on this subject, we decided it would be a good idea to call on John Corcoran of the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety and also an Orland firefighter to discuss the Pulse Point program that's being supported by Montgomery County. So go ahead, John.
Thank you very much. Montgomery County Department of Public Safety started using the Pulse Point apps just this past summer. And for exactly the occasion that we're celebrating here today, thank you. We want to encourage, although Pulse Point was not involved in this incident, this is what Pulse Point is all about, is to increase survivability of sudden cardiac arrest. Its Pulse Point Respond is a smartphone app. If you have it on your phone, it will alert you if a sudden cardiac arrest has been dispatched near your location. Unfortunately, right now, only 10% of sudden cardiac arrests survive. In between 2014 and 2016, it ranged between 8 and 12% here in Montgomery County. We're really interested in improving those statistics. Every minute that somebody who is in sudden cardiac arrest goes without CPR, their chances of survival go down by 10%. And when the ambulances are dispatched, on average, it takes them 4 to 6 minutes to get to the scene. So bystander CPR and the use of an AED will increase a person's chance of surviving more than double by as much as 3 times, 20 to 30%. And how it works is Pulse Point is integrated with our computer-aided dispatch, and it uses the GPS on the phone of the person who has it downloaded. So if a sudden cardiac arrest is dispatched within a quarter mile in a public place, and somebody has that app on their phone, it'll trigger an alert. That's the picture on the left there. And when you open up your phone, it'll open up to a map, and it'll show you where your location is, where the dispatch of the sudden cardiac arrest is, and if a AED has been registered, it'll show you the location of that as well. So that you can go to the scene immediately and before the ambulance arrives and start compressions, and hopefully if somebody else is there with you, you can send them to get the AED, and we can increase survivability. So there's a companion app that goes along with that. It's Pulse Point AED, and if you have that on your phone and you see an AED anywhere in a public location, we ask that you open this map, drop a pin on the map where that AED is located. It'll basically show you where you are. Just type in a quick description and snap a picture, and it's registered with Pulse Point. It takes less than 5 minutes. I've done it a couple of times. So we're just asking the public to help us. Please download and use both of these apps. They're available on the iTunes Store and Google Play, or you can get them by going to pulsepoint.org and /download. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Great.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for coming out. Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled program. The board is now open to comments or questions from the public. The board draws particular attention to those items listed on the agenda this evening. Please be advised that once the committee reports begin, the board can no longer accept questions from the floor. That's with the exception of the public hearings. At the conclusion of the committee reports, public comments will once again be accepted. However, official action on those issues listed on the agenda will have already taken place. Therefore, I feel like I'm losing the audience. That's something you said. That's right. This happens to me when I tell jokes, too. So. Therefore, if you wish to comment on an agenda item, now would be an appropriate time. Do we have any public comment at this point? Come on down, state your name and address, and, the mic's over there now. It's migrated.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you can angle this way, that's good. That way you'll get on the camera.
Right here's fine?
That's perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so we can get Mr. Photographer over there. Mr. Monticelli, Ward 72, Mr. Graham's ward. First of all, my question's going to have to be on agenda item number 8, resolution number 1449. You guys are going to be requesting to go ahead and have PennDOT come out and do a survey and see if a traffic light is needed on Gordon, Gordon Road and Bethlehem Pike. What came up to this action? Why are you guys requesting PennDOT to come out and do this survey? Is the traffic light right there at the gas station at Halls Lane and Bethlehem Pike enough, or is this at a different location that requires it?
That's exactly what we're asking them to look at. This grew out of people on Brookside Drive, some of whom are here tonight, being concerned about the safety of their ability to pull out there by the Fairlane Grill, which is between those two intersections. And we held meetings with the police and the neighbors and the businesses, and we're brainstorming about ideas. And one of the ideas that came up was perhaps putting a traffic light in the corner there that would help control the traffic and make everything safer. It is a dangerous stretch. And the reason we have to go through this process of a resolution is normally we can just ask PennDOT and they'll look at it. But in the case where you're asking them to install a light, they have a rule that says if you're going to ask us to install a light and we come back and say, okay, install the light, you got to pay for the light. Because what was happening was people were taking the free consulting from PennDOT and then saying, oh, $100,000, we don't want to spend that on a light. So that's why we have to pass a resolution.
Any idea of how much money that would be if they come back and say, yeah, light is required here? How much money would that be at a taxpayer's expense?
What are lights about that, or?
They're probably 175 to 200,000.
175 to 200,000. We don't think they're going to come back to that.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay, and this is coming out of taxpayer money. This large amount, of the estimated amount, like what the manager over there, Mr. Berger, said, 200,000? And you're already going through a debt crisis of just building this building here that we're standing on. Wow, that is just amazing and very asinine, I would have to say. But I see the purpose of why it's needed, especially since you have so many school kids attending Fairline Diner there. But there is a problem between the residents of Brookside Road coming out and pulling out their driveway to go on Bethlehem Pike? Is that why this is being requested?
This is public comment. This isn't a press conference, but I do believe I answered your question. It's to try and see what our options are for public safety. People have died there, and yes, it's easy to just say money trumps public safety, but I don't agree with that assumption.
Okay. Second, a non-agenda item. You guys out on the main stretch highway here, don't know what word this would be, but definitely a safety hazard with the sidewalk there. That's a public sidewalk. Between the Route 309 highway, you have the sidewalk that goes under that bypass. There's big red blocks there that I have noticed that have been there for months on end, probably caused from the winter storms that have been unattended. So that's definitely something to have on public record, that this is being advised. I'm telling you about this problem right now. And is there any intention for that to be done, or is that up to you guys to go ahead and request Public Works to go ahead?
That's exactly what we would do.
Okay.
And we consider it done. Are you talking under the underpass, or where exactly?
There
On
is
this side of the street, or
On, not this side,
on the other side?
because of course there's no sidewalk
Right.
here. On the other side, at the underpass, the big red clumps of concrete with the little bubbles, about 2 of them came apart, been like that since the winter storms. That is definitely one thing that needs to be done. And I know I brought this, another non-agenda item, I know I brought this up at the workshop meeting, but since we have a camera here tonight, besides mine, I would like to make sure that this is on public record too for the township to watch. And that would be on Church Road between Lantern Lane and Church Road all the way up to Summit Valley Lane. There is a couple of residents there that live on Lodges Lane, and their backyard backs up to Church Road, have a large amount of tree overhang, and it's been like that for years on end. But, you know, I told the fire marshal, Chuck Lowe, refuses to do anything. I don't even know if he ever comes out to the scene. So that's definitely one thing that should be going on public record tonight. I really don't appreciate that. I take that path there a lot as a hiking path, and you have branches that are really smacking in your face. How would you like that? But see, things like that, use the tax money towards that. Use tax money on things that are needs, not a preference. That's the key here, gentlemen. Needs for taxpayer money, not preferences. That be all my comment. I thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other public comment at this point? There being none, we will move into the committee section. Hold on. So we're now on to item 2 of the agenda, and I will take off as the chairman of the Internal Affairs and Zoning Committee, which is the May bill listing. I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the April check reconciliation in the amount of $853,840.03 and the May bill listing in the amount of $1,085,604.96. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. Item 3 is the Zoning Hearing Board. The next meeting of the Zoning Hearing Board will be held on Monday, May 21st at 7 o'clock in the Springfield Township building. The agenda has one item, George Hudson and Collision Star, 1150 East Mermaid Lane in Winmore, is appealing the determination of the zoning officer regarding the use of the property as a motor vehicle repair shop. This property was previously subject to a petition for variance to allow a motor vehicle repair shop use that was denied. That ruling is currently under appeal. The subject property is located in the Limited Industrial District. That is the announcement for number 3 on the agenda. And then at this point, that concludes my report, and I would like to call on the chairman of the Public Works and Facilities Committee, Commissioner Sham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one item this evening. Earlier today, bids were received and opened for the 2018 Highway Resurfacing Milling Program. Invitations were sent to 3 contractors, and the bid notice was publicly advertised. 4 bids were received as follows. Joseph Suker & Son, Eddystone, PA. Resurfacing, $79 a ton, milling price $365, I think it's a square yard, for a total bid price $605,641. Glasgow Incorporated, $70 a ton to resurface, $2.64 to mill, $519,329.60. Highway Materials, $64.75 per ton, $1.60 to mill, and $455,844 total price. J.D. Morrissey, $75 per ton, $3.45 to mill, for a total bid price $574,533. So at this time, I move that the Board of Commissioners award a contract to Highway Materials of Flourtown, Pennsylvania, to mill and resurface specified township streets for a total bid price of $455,844. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, saying nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Sham. We move on to the Chairman of the Community Development Committee, Commissioner Standish.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Standish. We move on to the Chairman of the Cultural and Environmental Resources Committee, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 reports tonight. I'm pleased to announce on the recycling report that during the month of April 2018, Springfield Township residents recycled 186.8 tons of material with a householder participation rate of 85.2%. The net cost for the month to the township was $17,930.67. My second report is really an announcement to be made about a stormwater driving tour. The Springfield Township Environmental Advisory Commission, in conjunction with the Delaware River Keepers Network,
is sponsoring a stormwater driving tour on Saturday, June the 9th, 2018, from 8:30 a.m. until approximately 11:30 a.m. The purpose of the driving tour is to review areas and means by which the township and township residents can improve stormwater quality and wildlife habitat in our creeks and ponds, including the Paper Mill Run, Gresham Creek, Hillcrest Pond, and other waterways. The tour will begin at Cisco Park on Montgomery Avenue, Erdenheim, in the parking lot. Registration is not required, but it would be appreciated. For more information and to register, please contact Fred Stein at the Delaware River Keepers Network via email at fred@DelawareRiverKeepers.org. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. We move to the Chairman of the Parks and Recreational Resources Committee, Commissioner Graham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excuse me. I have one motion and two announcements this evening. The motion is I move that the Board of Commissioners reappoint Adrian Smith and Dave Morris to new 3-year terms of service as member of the Springfield Township's Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. The new 3-year terms of service shall expire May the 12th, 2021. The township has received notification from
sorry.
Yeah, that's where you want to move on the
Yeah, why
motion
don't we
first.
do that, and then you can
Okay.
do the other one.
So that is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote, and you're back on, Eddie.
Okay, and the two announcements are the township has received notification from Rhonda McLaughlin that she regretfully is resigning her position as a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. On behalf of the entire Board of Commissioners, I wish to thank Ms. McLaughlin for her 20 years of service in the community. Thank you. And with the resignation of Mrs. McLaughlin, there's a vacancy in the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Residents interested in serving on the committee should send a letter of interest or resume to Donald E. Berger, Township Manager, 1510 Paper Mill Road, Windmore, PA. That concludes my report for the evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Graham. We move on to the co-chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Commissioner Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few items this evening. First is parking restrictions. I move that the Board of Commissioners amend the Springfield Township Code, Section 107-32, Schedule 9, parking prohibited, subsection A, Erdenheim, as follows. 1. Bethlehem Pike on the west side from Brookside Road to a point 55 feet northerly thereof. 2. Bethlehem Pike on the west side from Brookside Road to a point 40 feet southerly thereof. 3. Brookside Road on the south side from Bethlehem Pike to a point 50 feet westerly thereof. That is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion?
And this is, Mr. President, I have a comment. This will be open-ended in terms of the opportunity to relook at this a couple months from now in terms of the impact it has on local businesses.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's removing 3 spaces near the businesses. The businesses have been talked to about this, so this isn't blindsiding them, and think that it shouldn't be a significant detrimental impact, but we said we would do this temporarily to make sure, and we can't temporarily change the law, but we're doing it, but we're open-minded to see what happens. Any other questions or comments?
I had a comment, Mr. President. I believe the big problem here is site restrictions, and the people coming out of Brookside Road just can't see in either direction, north or south, about what's coming up or down Bethlehem Pike. I wondered if, as a possible alternative, we could consider just possibly not eliminating those parking spaces, but restricting them to for compact cars only. So I guess I would I would like to make a motion that in lieu of removing the parking on those spaces, that we change the parking to only allow compact cars, which would then not have the issue of site restrictions that so many of these larger vehicles would have.
He just said that.
That's my,
So is that an intermeeting motion, or what do we got?
Right, we would have to take action on the first motion, or table the first motion before we could move into a motion in the alternate.
okay, all right, then I would make a motion to table the action for further discussion on my proposal.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any questions or comments? So this would be to, presumably to vote on that, the amended idea, rather than the first idea. So all in favor of doing that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Eddie, were you a nay?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a 1 to 6, which means we're back to the original motion.
Thanks.
Correct? Any other questions or comments on the original motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. My next item is resolution number 1449. I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt resolution number 1449, a resolution requesting PennDOT to review the warrants for the installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of Bethlehem Pike and Gordon Road, Erdenheim. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion?
I have a comment, Mr. President. I think this is a extremely bad idea. I can't imagine at the bottom of Bethlehem Pike at Gordon Road putting a stoplight. I think it would create such chaos on Bethlehem Pike and the surrounding neighborhood that it would contribute to traffic congestion, additional accidents, and I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments on that? PennDOT will, if this goes through, they will weigh in on that. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Please record a 6-1 vote. And Mike, you're still up.
Yeah. Next, I have one announcement. It is in regards to the ambulance board. At the April business meeting of the Board of Commissioners, the board engaged the services of the Community Ambulance Association of Ambler to provide ambulance services throughout Springfield Township. As part of the engagement, the Community Ambulance Association of Ambler offered the Board of Commissioners 2 appointments on the association's board of directors. One position is an at-large board position, and the second position is a designated board position to represent Springfield Township. Any resident interested in representing Springfield Township on the Board of Directors of the Community Ambulance Association of Ambler should send a letter of interest or resume to Donald Berger, Township Manager, Springfield Township, for consideration by the Board of Commissioners. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Maxwell. Finally, we have the Chairman of the Library Committee, Commissioner Cobb.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Okay, now at this point, we have 2 public hearings. So there's a little bit of legalese and legend domain that has to go on up here. So at this point, I would accept a motion to recess the May 2018 business meeting in order to conduct the 2 public hearings. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. So now I need a motion to convene. We're going to do them both at once. 2 public hearings. One for ordinance number 953, an ordinance amending the sign ordinance to clarify the number of sign faces and display of sign faces. And 2, ordinance number 954, an ordinance amending the subdivision of land ordinance with a rewrite of the requirements for traffic management studies. Does somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
There. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, that was a unanimous vote, and now we're going to do the hearings one at a time, and I have a little bit of stuff I have to read here. Make sure I have them in the right order here. first one is the sign. Okay. Doesn't say 53, it's got me confused. This is the amendments to Chapter 114 zoning, Article 14 signs. The public hearing is being held in compliance with Section 609 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code to consider zoning code text amendments to clarify the permitted number of sign faces and sign arrangement for off-premise advertising signs. The legal requirements associated with the public hearing have been met by publishing a notice of the public hearing in the April 22 and 29 issues of the Springfield Sun. We'll have to in future say Ambler Gazette, as the name has changed since then. In addition, public hearing notices were posted in the Township Building and Library, Winmore, PA. Copies of the full text of the ordinance were available in the Township Building, the Library, the offices of Montgomery Publishing, and the Montgomery County Law Library. Summary. The proposed ordinance entitled Off-Premise Sign Arrangement Ordinance amends the Springfield Township Code, Chapter 114 Zoning, Article 14 Signs, Section 114-144, Type and Quantity of Permitted Signs, by repealing subsection J1A and adding a new subsection J1A in order to clarify the permitted number of sign faces and sign arrangement for off-premise advertising signs. We had some groups weigh in. The Springfield Township Planning Commission, in a letter dated April 5th, 2018, it was noted that the Township Planning Commission discussed the proposed amendments at their meeting of April 3rd, 2018, and voted unanimously to recommend enactment of the proposed off-premises sign arrangement ordinance. From the Montgomery County Planning Commission, the Montgomery County Planning Commission provided a letter of recommendation dated March 14th, 2018. The County Planning Commission recommends enactment of the proposed off-premises sign arrangement ordinance. At this point, we're ready to hear any questions. First, we start with from the board. Are there any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions. I would have a comment in moving forward with this ordinance, that in light of the debacle that we had with our last sign on 309, that some way, somehow, that if these signs are being placed within the neighborhood, that the residents, that the board make it a point to make sure that the residents are notified so that they can come in and weigh in on the placement of these signs and the directions that they point.
Thank you. And we've tried to tighten up our zoning, but you're right, that's certainly a very important thing. Any other questions from the board? Are there any questions from the audience? And now, this sounds like a little repetitive. Is there any test?
Yeah, there would be.
Okay.
What signs are these? Are these could be electoral signs, or what type of
Is this
signs?
limited to all, or is it just electric? It's
Well, they're all going to be off premises. We anticipate that they'll be billboard type
Right.
of signs. They don't have to be, but they're going
Right.
to be.
So it would be either. The issue is that signs, what you and I view as a sign is a flat thing that may have something on one side or the other. But now you're starting to see multi-shaped signs with different
But just
faces.
like the one outside there.
Well, that would be, that's a one or two, that's a two-sided sign, that's compliant. But if somebody wanted something that had like 4 different faces or 8 different faces, that's what this is saying, we don't want that.
Would this be on township property?
No, anywhere in the township, for off-premises signs, not on-premises.
Would this include private property?
Our sign ordinance, you can't go put a billboard up in your lawn, no.
Oh, really? Oh, that's quite interesting to hear. Would that be fall under the subsection of any Commonwealth law?
Well, this isn't changing where you can put them, this is just changing where they're put, the definition of what a sign is. And
Okay, so this is changing where they can be put?
no, it's not changing that at all. It's just
changing-
regulating them where they are legally put. It's just regulating so people don't get fancy and start doing things that they're not already doing.
Mr. President, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Would one of those windsock men that waves in the air, would that be considered a sign?
We've been kind of through that with the banners in the past, too.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't have a message.
Are they permanent? I mean,
It also depends on whether they come and go, too.
That's all they are. They're eye catchers.
Yeah.
I mean, if the windsock man had a sign in his hands, it was kind of,
Then we'll deal with the sign.
okay. But as a man himself, it'd be,
Yeah, I don't know that it's
It's like a clown standing in front of your building.
right,
Every giant 300-foot.
okay.
And is there any further testimony from either the audience or the board?
It's just, you guys are just going to be regulating what people can put on their property?
We're not changing anything about that. That law remains the same.
So people
We're not
can't
changing-
put signs on the lawn?
We are not changing what you can put on your private property. You can read our statutes and our zoning and figure out what you can, but we're not changing that. This is a public hearing on this ordinance, and this ordinance has no bearing on that.
So this is just bearing on throughout the whole township, on township property?
On legal, signs that are legal, we're changing slightly what you can do to the signs that are legal.
Okay, understood, yeah. No,
So this is like if we were saying you can't have cars that are a certain color, not that we're going to do that. This isn't saying who can have cars or anything, it's just saying that we don't, I mean, maybe that's not the perfect analogy, although the legal
We don't
analogy
want
is
hybrid
solid.
cars as an example or anything. I know.
Wait a minute. Any other comment on that? No. So at that point, we're going to vote on, we can't vote on that because we're still in the hearing. So I would, do we have to close the first public hearing and open the second? Okay, we're in public hearing, so now we're going to jump to the second one about the traffic studies. I have to read the boilerplate again. Public hearing is being held in compliance with Section 505 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code to consider amendments to the Springfield Township Code, Chapter 95, Subdivision of Land, as it relates to traffic management studies. The legal requirements associated with the public hearing have been met by publishing a notice of public hearing in the April 22 and 29, 2018 issues of the Springfield Sun. In addition, public hearing notices were posted in the Township Building and Library, Winmore, PA. Copies of the full text of the ordinance were available in the Township Building, the Library, the offices of Montgomery Publishing, and the Montgomery County Law Library. Summary. In summary, the ordinance entitled Traffic Management Study Ordinance amends the Springfield Township Code, Chapter 95, Subdivision of Land, Article 2, Submission of Plans, Section 95-7.1, Traffic Impact Studies, by deleting the subsection in its entirety and replacing it with a new Section 95-7.1 entitled Traffic Management Studies. The ordinance shall, 1, require traffic management studies for specified subdivisions, land developments, and rezoning requests. 2, require that the township traffic engineer and traffic engineer for the applicant set the scope of the study. 3, require the applicant to be responsible for all costs. 4, set the size thresholds for the developments requiring studies. 5, provide details required of the studies. And 6, state that studies must be approved by the township prior to plan submittal to PennDOT. Planning Commission reviews. The Springfield Township Planning Commission, in a letter dated May 1st, 2018, it was noted that the Township Planning Commission discussed the proposed ordinance at their meeting of April 17th, 2018, and voted to recommend that the Board of Commissioners enact the ordinance. Montgomery County Planning Commission provided a letter of recommendation dated March 14, 2018. The County Planning Commission recommends enactment of the subject ordinance. The County Planning Commission offered comments. The credit should be given for proximity to public transit due to the resulting reduction in traffic, and to consider including more language on safe pedestrian and bicycle circulation. Procedurally, I mentioned that we may be calling for a vote later on, and at this point, I would accept any questions or testimony from the board. Do we have any?
I have a comment, Mr. President. My only concern with the ordinance was that I think its maximum impact would be had on commercial, high-traffic businesses. So my only challenge is that I think that the requirement is for commercial buildings 5,000 square feet or more. And I think that like the average Starbucks is around 3,000 square feet. So, you know, they would be omitted from the requirement to do a traffic study. And that there is a business that I think would have, you know, obviously a huge impact on traffic.
Okay.
So I would prefer to see a more restrictive.
Okay.
But-
Are there any other questions or testimony from the
Well,
board?
just a comment to Jonathan's comment. Commercial buildings consisting of 5,000 square feet or more gross square footage area. You know, generally today, places like Starbucks are not freestanding. You know, there's usually a Starbucks and something else. So I think that, you know, they're going to, a lot of them will fall under the 5,000 or within the 5,000 square foot gross area. And the other requirement is that if they can show that 50 or more parking spaces are needed, then they would fall under the restriction too. So,
And I think the only challenge to that is that Starbucks now are looking to be freestanding because they want to have a drive-through. So any Starbucks that would come into our, and I think actually, I mean, the Starbucks, the existing Starbucks in Flower Town is woefully inept because of the lack of a drive-through. So I think that they would actively be looking for a new site that would have a drive-through, which I think would be freestanding at that point. So that is my main concern.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? And I open it up to the audience. Any questions or testimony from the audience about this? This is, I think it's, one sec. I think it's pretty clear what we're trying to do here. We found that the thresholds were, not only we felt a little too loose on this, we also felt that the township didn't have enough control in the process of making sure they're looking at the right thing, and we didn't have our own set of eyes looking at it, that you could just come in and have your own person come, and we were afraid that that just might not be a fair, unbiased approach. So that's why we're moving this into a more restrictive. We also worried about, we don't want to catch a really minor development and force them to do something that's costly, so we talked about making it easy for us to look at the project and waive these requirements. It's not sort of the opposite of what Jonathan said, that if we catch something that's 6,000 square feet and triggers it, but we realize it's just something that's not going to generate a lot of traffic, you shouldn't have to just burden the developer with the cost of that. So that's.
Can I ask a question also?
Yes.
Just a clarification. Is the 5,000 square feet, is it gross, buildable area, or is it the site itself? Is it land area?
It's the building.
The building itself, okay.
Yeah, gross floor area.
Don, did you want to say something?
Yeah, to Jonathan's point, part of the ordinance that speaks to the thresholds that you were talking about, there's a subsection that says that the Board of Commissioners, at its discretion, may request the preparation of a traffic management study for any other subdivision or land development not cited above. And the items cited above are the things that you talked about. So it gives you, the Board of Commissioners, the discretion to say, all right, the Starbucks is being put in a place that we really need to take a look at the traffic, and now they'll have to do a traffic study. So even though it may not hit that threshold for the size of the building, if you think it's such a location is going to create a problem, or you just want to understand it better, you could ask for a traffic study. So I think that addresses your concern.
Great. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
With the more information I know from being a member of the press, I know that Starbucks there is coming to not be at that location for the next 5 years. They're planning to move.
Do they have the location figured out?
No, not to my knowledge. But to my knowledge, or what I do know, a lot of kids from St. Genevieve's School heavily trafficked at Starbucks before school and much more at the 3 o'clock hour during the week. So there's definitely a concern there if they're crossing the street, that proper traffic is being done. But a major thing of what I find is you pull up there with your vehicle and you have people that have the right to go ahead. You know, you're coming down facing Starbucks, not upwards, but you're coming down and there is a light there. People who have the right to go ahead, they go ahead. I've been almost slammed a couple of times by pulling in there, you know? Definitely a revisit to that's going on there would be beneficial. And I know in that whole bill, because it's just like Starbucks there's an active law firm in that parking lot. And I know there is way over 50 parking spaces in that parking lot, generalized billing area. That Starbucks is heavily trafficked on Saturday and Sundays, and especially after school during the weekend. So definitely a revisit of that traffic signal there, icon, in my most opinion, of what I have witnessed to be very beneficial to be done. So the traffic study right there would be very beneficial.
Well, thank you. As you know, this is tied to land development, so we can only do, under this ordinance, we'd have to wait for a land development, but this would give us the power to do a more thorough study to try and prevent problems just like that. So we're certainly on the same wavelength.
Well, you're already able to do traffic, you're already able, though, to do traffic studies whenever you want and request PennDOT.
Right, you just called our last one asinine,
Yeah.
but not this one, down the street.
Because sometimes I don't see a really need for them. See, and Mr. Wilson over there pointed out a really good point that I totally agree with him. Why not just do a no parking zone?
Sir, I apologize,
Yeah,
but this is
that's
a
where I was
hearing
going.
on a specific issue, so we need to limit our comments to that.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm trying to just bring that for each agenda item.
Right, their only agenda item has to do with the text of this ordinance.
I know. Okay. Sorry about that, sir.
So, that's fine,
Your Honor.
no, I don't want to be formal, this is a public hearing we're in right now. So, and I appreciate your comments there about traffic studies, that's the whole reason we're doing this.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? So at this point, I would accept a motion to close our public hearing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. And then finally, we need a motion to reconvene the public meeting. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. Now, here we go. So now we're back to 9 and 10 on the agenda. We've had the public hearing, so I will make motions for each of these. First, we'll do the sign one. I move that the Board of Commissioners enact ordinance number 953, an ordinance amending the sign ordinance to clarify the number of signs and display of sign faces. That is my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I have a comment. Was it 953 or 963?
What's wrong? I got the next one wrong, too.
I have, ordinance is 953.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. Finally, I move that the Board of Commissioners enact ordinance number 954, an ordinance amending the subdivision of land ordinance by rewriting the requirements for traffic management studies. That is my motion. Do we have a second? Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Pete wants a second.
My bad timing. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any questions or comments?
I have a quick
Yes.
point of clarification. So just to confirm, we have a Amazon pickup location that's going to be a 1,000-square-foot building. Drive-through, people come in, pick up packages, potentially high volume.
Where's that?
I'm just saying,
hypothetical.
hypothetical.
I'm sorry.
We have the
Say, you got the
opportunity
invite back on Amazon.
to mandate them to do a traffic study?
If it's gone through the land development process, we do. Correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, if I come up with a second. It is section.
But just following up on Jonathan's comments, what would send it to land development? What would send that 1,000-square-foot to land development?
Just an improvement on a non-residential property. Any improvement on a non-residential property.
But if they were using an existing footprint and not really doing much improvements, it wouldn't. Okay.
Well, change of use would trigger land development.
It would.
Wouldn't it, Don? Change of use?
Necessarily.
No?
If they were just renting a space out and just
Left it blank?
You know, I'm thinking like the Ritas. If someone just came in and, let's say, put a different business in that location, that's a small,
Just renting a space out.
Yeah, but
That's-
I would imagine they're gonna put in a garage door to take deliveries and,
Change the parking
Change something, yeah.
As soon as they start making improvements to it. But I mean, if it was just a building and they didn't do anything at all to it, I mean, they might be able to get by, but that's not an issue so much of the traffic as much as the definition of a land development that the Commonwealth put out.
my only point was that I thought that initially we had thought, you know, because we can always waive it
Right.
for a business that, you know,
If it's
doesn't.
big, if it's like,
Right.
yeah, right.
So why not lower it to, say, 2,000? And then, you know, which does seem like it would catch. And then we can waive it at a later date.
But as it is, I mean, you could take theoretically a building that's 10 square feet and tell them to have a traffic study if they're going to put in a new door.
Right.
So, you know, we have a lot of flexibility, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I only bring it up because, again, there are plenty of high-traffic drive-through businesses, a la Starbucks, that would be outside of this mandate as written today.
But we would have power,
If it, yeah.
and if it didn't go to land development, this wouldn't change it anyway, no matter what the threshold was, because it wouldn't hit it.
And wouldn't the ordinance that Mr. Berger covered earlier, wouldn't that basically give us a discretion to order this traffic study regardless?
I think what the fear is if they don't hit the threshold or definition of a land development.
Right.
You can't make them go through any traffic study.
Right, you don't have a bite at the apple.
So that was Baird's point, is if they don't hit that threshold of being a land development, then it doesn't matter what the size is, you can't deal with it. But I think what you're also saying is they're gonna have to make some
Oh, yeah.
alteration to the building.
Like any
There's some
single-tenant building where they make any alteration is going to be a land development.
And two, Jonathan, if it's a property that has multiple tenants, Peter talked to the fact that, you know, some of the Starbucks are in, so that would, just because there's leaseholds on one property and multiple leaseholds, that's also a land development. So, but there could be a loophole, but,
But this doesn't affect that.
No.
The loophole's there no matter what we do on this and
Right.
how this is drafted.
But we still have the right to ask for one,
Not
long
if
as
it's
it's a
not
land
land
as
development.
long as it's, yeah.
as long as it's a land.
But we do, yeah, once we're in this,
Yep.
we're totally protected. So we're not giving anything up here.
Right. And the other thing is, let's just say in the rare circumstance that they find the loophole, we could just do one anyway and use that information, you know.
True. We could do one on our own initiative.
Yeah. So,
Yep. Although if somebody big, if they're going to come in, they're going to want to do it their way. We've certainly seen
yeah,
that.
right.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so we have a 6-1 vote. That being said, we are open for our final period of public comment. Do we have any final public comment at this point?
Is your Esquire over there, is that the right name tag?
Yes, yes, that's who he is.
And what's?
Well, the name tag says Jim Garrity.
No, it says Scott, it's correct.
You have your own
He
name?
got his own name tag. He's actually the acting solicitor, and this is the first we've had his own name on there.
Good
so
for him.
Yeah, that was done pretty fast, though.
But he's just acting tonight.
No, he's been our acting solicitor before.
Right.
It just happened to be tonight.
What agency?
He just didn't have a name tag.
Whistler Pearlstein, I believe. What firm?
Okay.
Same firm as Jim.
Same firm as,
Can you go ahead and state for the record your bar number, or are you going to be difficult and I'm going to have to call your request out?
do you know your bar number?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
It's 314208.
Okay, thank you. That'll be all my public comment.
Okay, thank you. There being no further public comment, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right, good deal.
Go Sixers.
Not too bad. Yeah, are they playing tonight?